Okay, I don't know about you, Bary, but I think this is our best ever podcast. What do you think?
You know, Joe, I think you might be right. I wasn't keeping track, but, now that you mention it, it is the best.
The best. Absolutely the best one.
Well, hey, Joe, here we are. Podcast number 3, man.
Wow, already.
We're
Time
moving
flies.
the numbers up, yes. So, feedback, comments.
Yeah, it's time for feedback, Bary. What do you have? Any feedback?
I do from Ed Gossert once again. And Ed, you're making our day so much with all of this because you said another great podcast. And he says he uses his inkjet printer, Joe, for making greeting cards, sending pictures to non-tech savvy family members. I love that. And I was able to get a printer to last 16 years.
Wow.
How do you do that?
You are a person who takes care of their gear and makes sure that the heads are clean.
Wow. It used dye-based ink, which is less prone to clogging, although the prints don't last as long. But for his application, he says it's not an issue.
I think dye-based inks last pretty good, though. I mean, it's the pigment ones that last longer, but I'm sure they clog up pretty fast.
I would think. Well, he thanks us for this effort. It's appreciated. Oh, I love this. It's fun watching two old friends talking photography.
That's us.
Oh, man. Definitely keep the cookies on the table. You've set the bar high. Keep them rolling. Well, Ed, thank you. Joe treated this time, and there's Selena Gomez Oreos, which you said there's some cinnamon in these.
Cinnamon, chocolate, cream.
Well, wait, this doesn't have that easy pull
Does
back.
it? Oh.
Well, everyone should have a knife, especially for getting into those cookies.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Oh, they look
Are
good.
you ready for a Selena
I'm going to try one of these
Gomez
suckers.
cinnamon cookie? Oh, yeah.
They look smaller than the regular Oreo. Is that just my imagination?
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me if over time they shrink it a millimeter every few months or more. It must be good because...
They're really good. Selena, you make some good
man.
cookies.
Well, we're going to run out of time in this podcast because we're going to be so busy eating cookies. Yeah. So we have Ed to thank for this.
Thank you, Ed.
You bet. What's new, I guess? Or
Wait a minute,
you
I have some feedback.
You do have some, don't you, Joe? Sorry.
I have a mouthful cookie. And I have a little feedback here from Mike Stone. And Mike Stone was the name of I wonder if you or he, who was an early writing mentor of mine and also was a private eye, which is kind of interesting. He wrote some very cool books. And his comment was, cool. So thanks, Mike. And we're going to be moving on to what's new. And the big topic around here, even though it's a little late because we were a little late recording this podcast, is the new Fuji Half camera, which is kind of a half-frame digital camera that emulates a film camera in many ways. And you had got a chance to take a look at a video about it. What was your take on it?
Well, I had to agree with the people who reviewed it. It looks like a fun camera, one you would take just for a fun shoot. And the recommendation was it probably wouldn't work for an assignment for a number of reasons. And clearly the video is just, well, don't even bother to attempt to shoot video on it. It's just stills.
I can't remember the last time I shot video. The only time I shoot video is if I make my little movie reviews, and I use a Canon E-series camera that's the only thing I use it for. Mm-hmm. My other cameras, I've never shot any real video on them, so I don't. First of all, the sensor is very tiny. They conveniently, in all their specs and everything that they give you here, they never tell you how big the sensor is, but I know that it's smaller than a Micro Four Thirds.
Well, if they're not telling you, then definitely it's got to be small.
And not only is it smaller than Micro Four Thirds, it's also oriented vertically, so that in order to shoot a horizontal, you have to turn the camera this way, which some people had trouble, evidently. I saw another YouTube video. They had a little trouble with getting that in their head, that to shoot the horizontal, they had to do it that way. But I have talked to Fuji, And I asked them to get a loaner camera so that we can test it out here and get some real hands-on. One of the most interesting things to me is that it has a film emulation mode with all the Fuji simulations that they offer with the Acros, which is like one of my favorite black and white films, and different Fuji color films as well. And maybe it has Neopan. I think it has Neopan too. That's another. I just did a post about Neopan. If anybody, I'll stick a link below on my post about the Fuji Neopan, which is also a really great black and white film. I don't even know if they make that anymore. Fuji has been shrinking the number of films they make as they increase the number of digital cameras that have film emulations, which is kind of an interesting twist on things.
That is, isn't it? Yeah.
So the people at Fuji said they're going to send us a camera, and we are going to test it. We're going to take this show on the road. We're going to go outside. Maybe we'll go walk around the Jackson Balls that are right outside here and make a few pictures, even of each other. That'd be kind of fun.
Roadshow. I like that idea.
Yeah.
And there's a surprise coming. We'll maybe talk about it in another podcast here real soon about being able to much more easily get out of this being tied down, literally tied down to cables in the studio. Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting camera. I think it's a little expensive. It's like $850, which seems like a lot of money for a camera that's basically something for vacations or trips, or I don't know what else you would do it for. You certainly wouldn't shoot a job with it because the images aren't going to be that great. The interesting thing to me, though, is that it does the same thing that the Pentax 17 film camera does, in which it shoots verticals instead of horizontal. Or you can turn it sideways to shoot horizontal. It's a half-frame camera, and it's $500. And if you want to do film emulation, you don't have to do emulation with the Pentax. The Pentax, you put film in it, and it does everything that the Fuji does, including you put Fuji film in it if you like. And I think it's only $500. So you could have the real thing, or you could have a digital version. But of course, with film prices all over the place,
See, you'd eat up that $300 difference pretty fast with film and processing.
Yeah, I think you could. I need to do a spreadsheet on that.
See,
That would be
that's it.
interesting.
You got to figure it
Maybe
out.
when we get the camera, I can do a spreadsheet. We can say how many rolls of film do you have to shoot with the Pentax. But the interesting thing, the Pentax is manual focus, zone focusing. So you got the mountains, the flower, and all that kind of stuff, which not very good. Whereas the Fuji is autofocus. So.
Well, right there, I would take the Fuji over that Pentax.
Yeah,
but it's still, that would mess me up for a long time.
Really?
Having to I think it would, because I'm so used to all these years of just knowing exactly horizontal, vertical.
Well, the cameras are horizontal, and so you want to think. You want to think that way. And there was a time in early digital cameras when digital cameras had many, many different shapes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know? You probably don't. Do you remember that Apple used to make a digital camera?
No.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Maybe I can find a picture and stick it in here. So,
that'd
if
be
everybody, there were lots of cameras that were vertical. Leica even made an early digital camera that was vertically shaped, and so did Contax. In the early days of digital imaging, around 2000, 2001, 2002, they were experimenting with lots of shapes, and they all came down to, geez, maybe we ought to make them look like cameras. And so that's where we are today.
Wow. We said nobody would use that on an assignment. I'm just thinking that with the right client who wanted that kind of a look, it might be a fabulous tool.
Parties?
I can think of a couple of photographers I know that have really honed their look to a certain even color palette and texture in their materials, and the one young lady I'm thinking of is shooting national ad campaigns, and they hire her specifically for the way she does all of that. I could see her I'm going to have to reach out. I know her father very well and see
if that's something
that she would consider or use.
I would love to hear a pro's take on that. That's actually using it for something other than Disney World trips.
Oh, definitely.
So we're moving on. We're going to be getting back to the Fuji Half in a little while in a future podcast. So I'm really looking forward to testing it, actually having it in my hands. And we're going to do the show and tell. I'm going to go first because I have something very simple. I'm really not going to show much other than this. This is a Canon AE-1, and this is one of the most popular film cameras ever made. I mean, Canon made, I think, almost 6 million. They made 5.7 million cameras. And what I want to do is talk about a project, really, rather than a show and tell, other than I bought this camera from Japan through eBay, and that's what the idea is. So what is the situation like now, buying from a foreign country through eBay, and what are hazards along the way? I have a video about buying cameras from Japan, but that was before the current situation with tariffs and stuff. So what's it like now? I got this from in Japan on eBay with this motor drive, and the coolest thing was a data back, even though it doesn't go into the 2000s, but it's beautiful. Everything is like new. It cost me $125 plus shipping. And the AE-1 was the de facto film camera for a long time, and it's coming back in popularity, mainly because there's a lot of them around. They're really cheap. So I'm looking at some cameras I may want to buy for this experiment, and I'm just thinking about, like, the Olympus OM1 film camera would be fun, or maybe Nikon F4. I'm not sure. I don't want to spend a lot of money, because if I get hit with a whole bunch of extra taxes and tariffs, I don't want to. I don't want to spend any more money than I have to.
There you go.
So that's going to be an ongoing project, and I'll let everybody know how that plays out in future podcasts. But you have a way more interesting thing to talk about.
I'm still a bit intrigued about this data back. I
Isn't that
remember
cool?
seeing images where people had used these, and on all their pictures there was a little yellow down at the bottom with this date stamp, but it's so analog compared to what we have these days. And you said it doesn't go into the 2000s. It stopped at Y2K.
Yeah,
Is that
mainly.
right?
Yeah,
1999?
it did. I mean, these were made in 19. This camera was 40 years old. So, but this actual model, the one I have, was made in '82, I think, and they made it for a number of years. So it was a very popular camera until things started changing, even toward the end of the A series. There are 6 A series cameras, and I'm going to show in the next podcast my favorite one. But there was one called the AL, which had a rudimentary form of autofocus, which at the time there was a thing called focus confirmation. Canon was a pioneer in that whole thing, and it was a way of doing autofocus with manual focus lenses. That was the secret. They didn't want to change their lenses because they realized, as Canon found out, in order to make this autofocus work, they were going to have to change the lens amount. Now, Nikon, in their wisdom, they said, we're not going to change the lens amount. We're going to make the camera autofocus while we still have the F mount. And they were moderately successful at that. The F4, which was their first autofocus camera, was so poor at autofocusing that many photographers switched to Canon because how bad the F4 was. But I love the F4, and I would love to own one at some point.
Well, I switched for the same reason, but it was after we were into the digital world, and the D2X, I believe, did it for me, and I switched to Canon.
You had the D2X?
Autofocus.
The autofocus wasn't that good.
No.
But now they're ripping it.
Said. I know.
Their mirrorless cameras are like top of the line.
Right. But I didn't want to hang in for all those years and have issues and problems. And
Yeah,
have
you
it
were
come back.
trying to make a
I
living.
was trying to
man.
make some money out of it, yeah. And it was hard to sell an out-of-focus picture that wasn't something you could call fine artwork to a corporate client. They didn't
Yeah.
understand that part.
No.
Not at all.
So, hey, you have the best show and tell. You're going to talk about how you do scanning of negatives
And
with your
chromes.
digital camera. And
And
chromes.
with my camera, because I had one of these wonderful little boxes that came from Costco many years ago that you could slide your images through, but it broke, of course. And I certainly don't want to be paying someone else to make scans of the probably hundreds, if not into some thousands of images I really would like to get digitized to have down the road. So I have a bit of show and tell here, if you don't mind,
Oh, I love this. This is really interesting.
to show you how to do that. And of course, do you have a little joke to tell? Because I forgot the main ingredient for my show and tell. I'll be right back.
I'll tell you a joke. No, I think it was W.C. Fields said, I remember that woman. She drove me to drink. I'll never forget her for helping me with that. I think that was it. Something like that. Fields, yes.
Next, I was going to see if you'd stand up and tap dance, but
I could do that.
you could? Okay,
You know, I am a
that gets
famous
us closer.
dancer.
So this is...
Oh, you have another camera here.
It's a bit of a contraption that I've set up, and it's at home. It's much more stable.
Well, you have a picture. We'll post it so people can
of
see
my
what it looks
setup,
like.
Yes. But in the meantime, I will show you the first way I did it, which is just, you'll start laughing, okay? I haven't shared this with you before. I found an app called Color Softbox that turns this screen a myriad of different colors. They say it's designed to be used
It's like a
in
little light
serious
box.
filming as a light box, as a fill light. To me, it has nowhere near enough illumination to do that. But I had an urgent request from a new client that needed one of my very old photographs, and I had the film.
How old?
Oh, we're talking, it was probably 1980. She needed a couple of images. So what I did, and again, I forgot one other piece, Joe, but this is just
Do you have it with you?
a little serious.
I think of
silliness.
another joke.
Would you? Okay, because it's important.
Let me see.
Okay, I think I've got what I need. So
Okay.
many of my images are in these sleeves.
Yeah, print file.
Five-
The best
print
ever
files, 5
stuff.
or 6 across. So it's easy to look at them.
Now, you shot this?
Oh, I
This
just grabbed a
was this
strip
People
of-
magazines?
No,
Shoot?
this was way before that, back in the days of the Denver Post.
So, who processed the film?
I did.
You
Mm-hmm.
process it in the darkroom,
Oh, yeah.
in a tank, by doing the whole
Doing all
thing.
that. Yeah, dry the film, made the prints.
You made the prints too?
Oh, of course.
Wow.
Each photographer did their own.
Every
at the
photographer had to
newspaper.
do their own printing?
Gosh, yes.
You didn't have a dedicated darkroom staff?
Well, there was a couple of guys who did some of it, but it was mostly from the freelance images that came in.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably the best accessory I've had and kept for a long, long time. It's a
It's a loop.
4X Schneider loop.
Oh, a Schneider.
Oh,
loop.
yeah. So without a big light table anymore, I started to use this iPad with this white screen. And you can't see that, but I could then eyeball, because that's the term we used to use, these images to see which one was sharp, which one I liked. And I'd pull out the strip of film, and this is leftover film holder, strip holder, from my scanning box that quit working.
That was a neat thing. I always wanted to get one of those, but I never
Carefully.
got around to it. And then they stopped making it.
Put it in and close it. So to do my emergency scan before I had this whole thing set up, I took tape and I taped this onto this light box to hold it in place. Now, I'm not going to run away again and get some tape. You're just going
Okay.
to have to take my word for
I'm
that.
taking your word for it.
And then the trusty 60 millimeter f2.8 Olympus macro lens
This is a great lens.
would go like so, and then I would then focus.
You would hand hold it?
Oh gosh, no, I did a tripod, but again, there's the tripod's being used to hold our camera, for God's sakes. And I would do this, and I had it set to auto bracket, so it would catch 3 brackets for me. And that's how I did that one quick scan. And, you know, I had to eyeball it to make sure it was as level as it could be, and I shot several, and I got my one picture, and I got the job done, and I got paid.
Well, that's the ultimate test of whether the process was good.
So then it became necessary to have this on a far more economical,
Yeah.
easy to use
Well.
process. So a good friend of mine, Ernie Leba, has been using this from Negative
Oh,
Supply.
he was using it.
Oh, yeah, he's got a real permanent setup on a real solid surface with a nice light box. And I've got a nice 14 by 18 light box that's much brighter than the iPad. And I set that down. And I put a little bit of black paper around it to keep that glare from hitting into the lens. And I take the film strip now.
Now, the naked negatives.
And the one drawback with this is that it's a little tough to get this in at first. But it slides in eventually.
It's like a film holder and an enlarger.
It's kind of both. And as you can see then, I pick out which one I want to do my scan on. Now, some people would think they're going to use some canned air to clear this off.
Brush.
Because you can, if you hit that, you also often get the liquid coming out.
Yeah, it's not
whatever
really
the stuff is inside.
propellant. It's a propellant.
Yes, and that's going to ruin these. So I'm back to my tried and true.
Is that left over from your darkroom?
It's left over from just cleaning off the sensor in the camera.
Oh.
Because again, you wouldn't want to put the dust off in that.
No, hell no.
So it's just a quick hit, like so. I position this, and once again, this is tripoded. So I push and I focus, and I'm doing again a 3-bracket exposure because each negative has got some different density. And then I've got my images. The tricks for me were to find a really solid table because some portable tables with the fold-up legs aren't enough to hold this steady. And I'm going to get blurred images. And then I'm just taking it into Lightroom. After I've shot a bunch of these, man, I can do this all day this way. It's
Sure.
a lot easier. And go in and convert them, or invert them, I guess, to a positive
Sure.
from the negative, and do the tonality work that I need to do. And we'll look up a price. I'm sure this is under $100, and it's got some different sizes for some different film sizes. And it's my way to scan on my own when I've got time to do it.
It looks like it's nicely made, though. I mean, it's, you know,
Yeah,
it's plastic, but it's solid.
But it's got these grips on the bottom to help
Yeah,
hold it in place.
they really grab.
And that's my show and tell with all my gadgets.
Oh, I love
and
that. I think
gizmos.
it's very cool.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to give that a try because I have a million negatives. Do they have a holder for 120 as well? You know,
I think they do. I'm almost
I have
positive
some 120 chromes. I shot with my Hasselblad 500 CM that I would love to.
Oh, yeah. And again,
Scan.
it's easier than, there's companies that will take all your film and scan it for you. I'm just
As
not
long as
real
you send them
comfortable
bags of money.
and take the chance to ship the film
Yeah.
because it literally is kind of priceless in a way. You're not getting a second
Oh
chance
yeah.
at it.
A 1980 image. You know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So again, I've used stuff I've had laying around. This loop, I didn't know if I'd ever use it again in the digital world.
I have two Schneider later versions of that. They changed the design a lot.
Okay.
They're gray, and that one looks very nice.
I used to use it on the back of 4x5 to focus
Oh.
on the ground glass.
Jeez. I used to, I love the Schneider loops. The classic was the Agfa loop, which used to sell for like $4. You remember those?
Oh, sure.
Back in the day.
Yeah, they were some. And
I still have mine. I saw one of those
Oh,
too.
nice. The only downside is this is solid black.
The later ones have a skirt that
Okay.
you can screw off and on that are transparent,
Okay.
translucent.
Because
the ones I
that-
have, I'll have to show you one of those. Maybe I'll bring it next time, let you see it.
Because you can't just put this down on a contact sheet. You've got to have light underneath
Yes,
it.
that's
Because
why the
light
new
won't-
ones
Yeah.
have they have two different skirts. You can change them,
Okay.
so it's pretty cool. Well, that was pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Hey Barry, what's next?
So we're looking at influences.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
you know,
We're going to talk about people, photographer.
photographers who might have influenced our work.
Yeah. So.
Can I go first because yours is much more interesting, just like your show and tell.
Oh, sure.
There were two people who were my most influential. One was in the black and white world because I came from the black and white world from going to an art school, and so everything was in black and white. So I had a couple of guys who really influenced my black and white work, and one was Frederick Evans, and who was an Englishman who photographed the interiors and exteriors of cathedrals and made platinum prints. I remember these are large format platinum prints and just beautiful work. And the other one was a Czech photographer by the name of Joseph Sudek. If any of you guys watching want to Google those guys and look at some of their work. And the interesting thing about Sudek was he was shooting Prague, I think it was. He would shoot in Prague. And that's when I got fascinated with Prague as a place to make images by looking at his work. And the thing about his images, there were no people in it. And he was criticized often about, and so was Ansel Adams, about not having a people. But Ansel Adams said, there's always two people. There's the photographer and the viewer. And that was his take on why are there no, yet Ansel Adams did portraits. He did famously, he did portrait. Well, for a living, yeah.
Yes.
But he also photographed like Georgia O'Keeffe. There's some really great pictures
Yes,
he
there
made
are.
of Georgia O'Keeffe. The other influence was in the color side, and it didn't really affect me till much later. And it was a guy named J. Frederick Smith. He's a guy you don't really hear much about anymore. A lot of people don't know who he was. But he was an illustrator who became a photographer. And he did some work. He did one book. There's only one book. If you look on eBay, you can find it. It's called Photographing Sensuality. He's a terrific photographer, and his work kind of seeped into my head and really didn't come out until I moved out here, and I became fascinated with the glamour photography, especially the work of Peter Galland.
Yeah.
But it was that J. Frederick Smith's images. They were a naturalistic look at color, and these were the guys that influenced me. I guess J. Frederick Smith influences me to this day. But you have a much more interesting thing about this, and we talked about this at coffee a week ago.
We did, and I was struggling to come up with somebody that influenced me when I was getting started.
Well, you were in
And-
college, right? And you did photography.
Well, actually, I started in high school is where I
Oh.
got some training.
You actually were you on like in the school newspaper and stuff like
The
that?
yearbook.
Yearbook.
After a class in photography, because back in that day in my high school, photography was not an art. It was taught as a science.
No kidding.
A person needed either a full year or at least a good semester in high school of a science as part of your graduation requirement.
Oh.
So you had your botany, you had your biology, you had chemistry, or photography. And I know that in the biology class, they put the little frogs and stretched
Oh.
them out with the pins, and then they...
Yucko.
And I'm not really that squeamish. Maybe back then I was, but I did photography and worked on the yearbook staff and met a good friend for many years who sort of showed me a little bit about it.
Did you have a camera?
I did. I had a Yashica something and maybe a Pentax.
You mean a Sheikah twin lens?
No.
You have a
I
35
think
millimeter.
35. The thing I remember was that it was so cool because I could get a hall pass to leave class to go shoot pictures for the yearbook. And I could wander the halls, and all of a sudden for this kind of non-athletic, I didn't fit into with all the Beatle and Beach Boy looking guys. I was just this regular guy in a class of 1,000, and suddenly I became popular because I had that camera. People wanted their picture taken to be in the yearbook.
Uh-huh. So
So anyway, I went on and started to earn a living at the college newspaper and did that for, that's been my entire career. But I just remember something clicked in my head when I had that camera, and I would just start to shoot pictures. I didn't read photography books. I wasn't studying anybody's work. Somebody here and there would give me a tip on something to process the film.
you mean like the darkroom aspect of it?
Yes, yeah. And I remember at the college newspaper, there was another photographer and certainly taught me a bit about, making good prints and getting that stuff done. But I just remember the cameras, putting it to my eye, and there were these moments happening out there, then I photographed them. The cause didn't matter to me. It was just the ability to take these images that, well, to this day, I hope that back then even they told stories. So I
Even
certainly
back then.
started to study it later, I'm sure, with some books, and as we get into more podcasts, we're going to revisit this
Yeah.
topic because I think it's really important. But early on, I just did it myself.
So you were your own influence, or you evolved from
Maybe from that, yeah.
you
Yeah.
saw a situation, you thought about how I can interpret that situation by telling a story with the picture.
Yes.
See?
Yeah, and I started to learn that different lenses and perspectives and different angles would help make it a more interesting picture.
But you never took
somebody
any
to look at.
photography classes.
No. Other than the science class in high school, and
Well,
all
you
you
know,
did was
even
learn.
darkroom, you just learned a darkroom the same way?
Well, no, that was the science part of the class.
Oh, they actually took you to the
You
dark-
had to read a book, memorize stuff, and then 2 students at a time could go back into the little darkroom and process a roll of film.
Oh,
I don't know that.
that's
Were there
interesting.
enlargers? Did we make prints back in high school? It wasn't very many. And maybe with the yearbook, some of that was sent out, maybe even to the local whatever lab, and they worked from 4x6 or 5x7 prints. I don't remember being in a dark room at the yearbook in high school.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
We had a darkroom at art school that everybody in the class, so 20 people would be in there. And there would be 20 enlargers. And the chemicals would be out in a big sink in the middle. Big trays.
Sure.
And you would just kind of wait for your turn to dip
just
your
jump
dip
in.
and dunk in.
Oh, man.
It was a different world.
Oh, man.
So you're self-taught and in the darkroom as well, even though you had little. I mean, the
That's- I had
process.
more help there.
People, I think people don't realize that's the process of working in a darkroom is not that complicated.
No, it's
it
just-
what you need to just practice and refine your technique. The technique is pretty straightforward.
Yes. But then it becomes an art to make prints.
To make really great
Oh,
prints,
yes.
there's prints and there's prints. You know,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
everybody can make a crappy print. That's pretty easy.
Right.
You can make, and you can print anywhere. I mean, when I lived in the East, I processed my film in the bathroom upstairs, and I made my prints in the kitchen, and I could only print at night because there was a window in the kitchen.
That,
So I would wait
wait for
till
dark.
it got to be nighttime, and I would go in the kitchen and make my prints.
Wait until dark.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's very
Well,
cool.
thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I think it's really fascinating. So now we're wrapping it up here today, and we are up to now 50 views of our last podcast, which is so exciting. And we still don't have a catchphrase or a title for the podcast, although we have one suggested, and I'd like to know what you think. And anybody out there wants to think. It's one from your son, Matt, who said, Grain, Pixels, and Cookies. That was his title
Grain,
for the
Pixels, and
podcast.
Cookies.
I actually like it.
Well, that is nice. I mean, as we start,
We
to
should
go-
ask Ed. Hey, Ed, what do you think of that title?
What's the name? Well, I don't know how you are about what is it, self-deprecating humor, but I thought as we're going to start going out on the road with some new cool things, we could be the antiques on the road show. Maybe we don't
I'm
wanna
feeling
do
that way today.
Okay. I like the other one, cookies, grain, and
Grain, cookies. No, that's not it. It's grain, pixels, and cookies.
And cookies.
That was his suggestion. I'll have to
Okay.
come up with the title sequence next time for that
Yeah.
and see if it works.
Okay.
So, hey, thanks for watching.
tuning in.
We'll catch you next time.
Yes, sir. On the flip side. Bye.
Now, talk about being put on the spot. I should know a whole bunch of Rodney Dangerfield. Oh, yeah, here's the famous one. Well, you have the big, beautiful knife.
Rule 9, always carry a knife.
Man, I have a Swiss Army.
Well, there's our first technical glitch with one of those library lights just kicked off on us. Do we keep going or should we
I think we're
take
going
a
to be
break and set
in the
up?
dark.